So again, Kellyanne and myself, I'm Kim Basler. Welcome to our weekly show, Raw and Unscripted. And we're going to talk. Definitely, today is more of a conversation that's in my wheelhouse, but I've reassured Kellyanne that she has lots to contribute to this conversation. We're going to talk all about really creating and cultivating and improving our relationship with our body. This is a conversation that's near and dear to my heart based on my own story, and also all of the women and some of the men as well that I have worked with that have come to me with struggles in their body. And I think as we move into this warmer weather and less clothing and opportunity to show more skin, we either recognize where we need support still, or we be like, you know what, I've come a really, really long way. And guess what? These are my varicose veins and I'm letting you see them, right? So we're going to have a really great conversation. I'm going to just move over to my social for a second. Kellyanne, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Kim. And as Kim said, this is definitely in her wheelhouse, but I don't think there is a woman or really a man
Mm.
around who has not had struggles with their body image. And I certainly have had my own struggles. It really doesn't matter what size you are. It's how you feel in your body.
Mhm.
And many of us don't feel great or have had times where we don't feel great in our body. And I have watched how that has affected me and certainly, especially my daughters.
Mhm.
So it's something that I am much more aware of now that I wasn't when I was a young mom, and probably teaching my girls some things that I shouldn't have taught them.
Well, I think
So,
you brought up a really good point, and thank you for sharing all that. You brought up a really good point. Things are changing, and I'm going to share a few stats, but things are changing. If you are, I want to say, woke, you're awake. You're
mhm,
awake to what we're talking about in society and how the way you speak to yourself, the way you engage with yourself, engage with your children, what you say, it is being watched, and we know right from that little tiny little age, kids are noticing these. I've heard it, I've seen it as young as 3 years old. They are seeing it, and it is our responsibility if we want to create a more kinder, supportive, loving race. We have to recognize that it starts with us at home, which is ultimately when mothers, well, I tend to work with women, as you know, but when they come to me and they say, well, how do I ensure and support my children so that they don't grow up feeling the way I've felt my whole life? And I say to them, it's because you start with yourself.
mhm,
Start with yourself. It always begins with us in the home. And we know that there's a lot of things that are contributing to how we feel about ourselves and the way we engage with our bodies. There's a lot of variables, but we know that that relationship at home in those we talk about this all the time, right? Those
mhm,
0 to 7 years, those
mhm,
are prime years to foster self-esteem, self-image within someone. So
mhm.
yeah, I
Yeah.
want to say welcome to those of you that are tuning in. Hi, Liz and Angelica. Thank you for being here. Yeah, so we're going to start right into it. And of course, Kellyanne, I'm going to remind you to engage and jump in anytime you need to. I want to just make sure that we're on the same page here when it comes to when I'm talking about body image. This is the thoughts that we have about our body and the feelings that we have about our body. That is what creates our body image. So we can have a healthy body image, or we can have an unhealthy one based on how we think and feel about our bodies. I'm actually doing a large presentation in August on creating a healthy body confidence, body image at a large fitness conference. And I've been starting to do some research so we can get some more stats. And of course, a lot of the research tends to come out of the States and other parts of the world. But I did find some studies that did a global research, and they had some stats for Canada. And of course, we're here in Canada. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about that. I won't spend a ton of time, but I just want to, bring into our awareness that essentially one in five Canadian women are not satisfied with their appearance. 1 in 5. So if you think of the women that are in your circle, you could be in a room with 5 people. There's going to be one person there who's not satisfied. And of course, that could look like somebody who's really, really uncomfortable in their body, or someone who just can't even engage with themselves in a mirror. So we know that it's about 1 in 5, and then 9% of Canadians are completely unsatisfied. Or sorry, let me rephrase this. 9% of Canadians are completely satisfied with their body. Only 9% of Canadians are completely satisfied with their body. This is women I'm talking about. And then of course the men, they have a healthier body image. So as much as we we can say we all struggle on some level, it is women that are harder on ourselves and we have a harder time being in our body. And of course it's because of what we've been taught through all of the years of our messaging that gets passed on about how we're supposed to look as women and how we're supposed to behave as women, and it gets passed on, and that's why we are feeling more comfortable. Do those stats surprise you, Kellyanne?
Well, they do, because the 1 in 5, I would have guessed it was way more than that.
Well, and that's what I would agree. I would agree with that too, that I would think based on the women that I talked to, but of course it comes down to this study. This study had 27,000 people over the course of 22 countries. So it all comes down to whether or not they're choosing to, answer in the ways that they wanted to. Because I agree. I think it should be higher than that.
Yeah,
Uh,
because I think the stat of, you said 9% of women are actually happy with their body.
that doesn't
That
correlate.
doesn't jive, right? So, I mean,
Exactly.
to me, it makes much more sense that 90%, if you ask 90% of women,
Mhm.
is there something about your body you're not happy about? I would say 90% of them would say yes.
For
There's
sure.
something. There's
So
something.
it tells you, I mean, and this is of course the thing, depending on the study and depending on the questions and depending on a person's a willingness to share, right?
Exactly, and there are other countries that are much more, I think, further along than we are. There's more,
Mhm.
many more, I just think of like nudist
Totally.
beaches in different countries and things like that, where they are much more comfortable with their body. I think many more cultures are much more comfortable with their
Mhm.
body than we as North Americans are.
I totally agree with you. You know what's really interesting though, and this is the thing, I talk about this all the time, and I really would love to see this shift, is that as we get wiser, as we get older, okay, which I'm fine with getting older, so I would say older and wiser, once we reach that age of 60 and older, we're satisfied. And I think that that
Mm,
ultimately comes down to the fact that we've lived and we understand life and we understand what really matters, right? In
mhm,
the grand scheme of things, we have more wisdom and years behind us. My
mhm,
goal is to help us move that along sooner, because I say this all the time, like women are waiting far, far too long. They're struggling in their bodies far, far too long, and we're missing out on our lives, right? We really,
and
really
as
are.
yeah,
Mhm.
as a woman who is approaching 60,
Uh-huh.
you're still a long way away from that, but
Mhm.
you definitely see, I think in your 50s, you really start to see a lot of changes in your
Mhm.
body,
Mhm.
with menopause and things like that.
Yep.
And it just becomes undeniable.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so maybe that's where some of that acceptance starts to come in, because you realize,
Mhm.
okay, like, and there are certainly women who go and have all of the fillers, have all the work done. Um, but I think for the majority of women, as you say, they're in a different position in their life. And if they're in a place in their life where they feel happy and content, then their outward appearance becomes less important. And so they are more accepting, I think, of themselves overall. And your body is part of that.
Mhm.
And I think the other thing I just want to mention, as as you get older, like closer to 60, you start to see friends, acquaintances who are the same age as you starting to go through health challenges, starting to, you know, I've noticed, people who are getting sick, or, even people in their 50s who are dying from heart disease and all those kind of things.
Mhm.
And I know for me, I've started to appreciate more that my body is healthy,
Mhm.
regardless of what it looks like, and regardless of the fact that there's parts of it I'm not happy with, but
Mhm,
it's healthy and it's serving me well. And
mhm.
I think maybe as you get older, that's something that you start to consider too.
No, I 100% agree with all of that, right? And it's really looking at, I always say, and a lot of this has to come down. If I'm talking with people right now that are, 35 and younger, right? Like this is part of our archetype. When we are younger, we are very, and we focus more on our bodies, right?
Mhm,
And it's of course everything that we're taught. But as we get older, we recognize that our body has allowed us to bring children into the world, that our body
mhm,
has allowed us to be able to hike a mountain that we've always wanted to and really, embrace what we saw when we were up there, hug our grandchildren, go for bike rides. Like this is the appreciation of our body and
mhm,
what it does for us, right? But if we you've mentioned something that which to me I believe is the biggest highlight of this entire conversation when we talk about our bodies is recognizing that when we have more outside of us that we love and we enjoy and we have play and we have faith and we have all of these areas of life that contribute and feed our soul, that give us purpose, that let us wake up in the morning and we're so blessed to be awake again for another day. Our body then doesn't have that same focus. We're not living in that same low vibe state, right? What I always say this, I said this morning on my stories, but wherever I go, there is my body. So if you're not comfortable in your body and then you're not comfortable in your life, you're going to feel that sensation come up often because when we're a lot of us are not in tune, we're not in tune with our emotions. So there could be something going on in our life, we could be tired, we could be fatigued, but if we don't have awareness, then we immediately will take it out on our body because our body, it's silent, right? Well, it's silent in a way, right? But it doesn't speak back at us. Like I would never speak poorly to a friend and take my anger out on her, but we do this to our bodies,
mhm,
right? I want to pop in here and take a peek at comments as we're coming in here. And Hannah's brought up a very important point that the different bodies and what is beautiful and
mhm,
sensual and in um, attractive in different parts of the world, how it all changes. I've had people say that, like I wasn't comfortable in my body here where I live, but when I go on vacation to this place, I
mhm,
actually felt for the first time ever at home in my body because I saw other people that looked like me. Right. So
right.
that's a very important point. And I know, Angelica, you've done a lot of work on learning how to appreciate your body. Angelica's always been so wonderful sharing that as we've worked so much together on that. So this is where I'm going to be able to, you're going to feel like you're going to be able to contribute, right, Kellyanne? We know, we know how the way we speak to ourselves, our thoughts, when we repeat them over and over and over, they will become a belief. Okay. And if I have a belief about myself, that belief will then impact how I engage and behave with my body. Right. So, just for anybody who might be, I'm just going to throw it over to you, Kellyanne, because I want to keep bringing you into this conversation. For people that might be tuning in right now for the first time, why do our thoughts matter so much when it comes to helping us create a healthier relationship with our bodies and ourselves?
And I think, we've talked about the I am statements,
Mhm,
and the things that you say to yourself about your body, whether they are, whatever it is, I am whatever.
mhm,
Those thoughts, your thoughts are the things that create your feelings.
mhm,
So you can't change your feelings if you don't feel good about your body. You have to change your thoughts because your thoughts are where everything originates. And what's happened is those thoughts have probably been on repeat. And usually, it could be from the time you were a child, but often it's those teenage years, don't you find? That's
Oh,
when we
for sure.
start to get obsessed with our body.
Yep.
So those thoughts have been on repeat. And what they have created is they've created like deep grooves in your mind. So it's easy for that pattern to just keep getting repeated. So you can start to, like, let's say you want to get fit. You decide, okay, I'm going to start going to the gym because I want to have a healthier body. And you can do that and do a really great job with that. But your thoughts haven't caught up with those actions. Your thoughts are still saying, no, I'm whatever it is. I'm out of shape. I look ugly.
Mhm.
you know, so it's changing those thoughts, and those thoughts will then change the feelings, which will then impact the actions, and you will be able to change everything by changing the thoughts. But those thoughts, those new thoughts, you need to build that muscle of those new thoughts. You need to build those grooves in your mind. And so that's where those I am statements become really important when it comes to your body image.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Jeannie's just popped in here talking about social media, right? And what we see in magazines. This is really, really key. I wish we could say that in 5 years from now, we're going to see more. I believe we will see more diversity in our bodies, and we'll see diverse bodies in movies. But the fact is, I don't know if we will. In our lifetime, we're going to still continue to see a um a higher ratio of what a body is supposed to look like, right? So this is where our thoughts really start to have to be turned up, amplified. You have to be responsible for yourself and continue to cultivate that. And I can say this because I've had to do this, and I still do this every day for myself, because I still have days where I don't feel comfortable in my body for a variety of reasons. But down deep, I have to continue to remind myself. What I've essentially done for me is I've had to really work on changing what I define a beautiful body to look like. Like, what is beauty to me? And yes, we are all beautiful in our own ways, and I think that's very important. But I mean, I'm speaking from my own experience. What is beautiful to me is a person's soul. It's with the way the person, who they are as a person. It's not their, because I mean, I have seen, let's just speak it out here. We know the stigma that our society has, and we all have it. I don't think a single person will not have some type of stigma, because that is what we've been raised to believe, that fatter bodies or fat on a body is wrong, and that it is ugly, and we have all these perceptions about what that means about that person. Okay? So we have to own that. We have to own that, and that's why we have to do our own work. Because if I've had people say to me, "Well, I I think she's beautiful. She's allowed to be that size. I see beauty in her at that size, but I'm not beautiful at that size." And that's because we still have the underlying beliefs that there is one way to have a body, and that is that it's supposed to be small, thin, and beautiful. So we have to challenge our own beliefs, and we have to then watch how we're projecting that out onto other people, because again, it's all thought based,
Mhm.
right?
I think there's some companies, like I love the fact, and you're right, I don't think things are going to change
Yeah,
dramatically in 5 years, but
yeah,
I think there are steps towards that. Like I look at Lululemon and I look at the Gap, like some
yeah.
of those stores that are starting to use diverse models
Mhm, mhm,
in their advertising, and I love that. Like, and I my hope is that the young girls that are starting to grow up now, those are the ones that are going to see. The ones who are right now, in their teens and 20s and 30s, maybe they're not going to be hugely impacted, but my hope is that we are moving towards a culture of more acceptance of diversity in every way,
mhm,
right? And certainly of different bodies. And it's interesting, you talk about, even when you look back at in the, let's say in the 60s, Marilyn Monroe was this huge sex symbol.
mhm,
She did not have a little body.
yeah,
She was curvy, she had a belly,
mhm,
I mean, and that was considered sexy. That was attractive.
mhm,
So I think it's very much what social media and what any kind of media
mhm,
portrays as beautiful.
mhm,
That's what the society kind of adopts at that time. So as we see things start to move away from that and become more diverse, I hope we're entering. that
So
area.
that research study that I was talking about, they're already saying that the little wee ones are already not feeling those feelings as early as they once did.
That's
So speaking
wonderful.
to what you just said, um, it is already changing. And again, it's our role as parents too, right? Like, what are we, are we having scales in the house? Are we talking about our bodies? Like
Yeah.
this is really where it starts from. So think about that, everyone. Know that you're tuning in here for replays in the future. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, recognize that, and there's so many, this conversation today could go in so many different directions. We try to keep them around 30 minutes, but when it comes to any types of thoughts that you are wanting to now create, and you want to have a new, and you might not even know what that looks like, because there's a lot of debate now. It's like, well, am I supposed to love myself at this size? Does this mean
Mhm.
that I'm a bad person if I want to make my body different? This is what's unfortunately starting to happen.
Mhm.
There's this debate
Mhm.
that's starting to, people are made to feel bad when their bodies release weight. And now it's like, well, you should have embraced your body the way you were. Weren't you, activating, or not activating, but being, in favor of all body sizes, and breaking down this fat stigma. So there's so much shaming still happening. It's
Mhm.
like, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you
Yeah.
don't. What I always say when it comes to body image, when people say to me, like, I want to be kinder to my body, but I'm really having a hard time. I want to make my body smaller. Obviously, it's your body. You get to do whatever you want with your body. Whatever, if you feel more attractive with, at a certain size, if you feel, that you want to, let's go in. No, we've been talking weight a lot, but let's just talk about Botox. Let's talk about eyelashes. Let's talk about all of the things that we do. Listen, it's not a problem unless it's a problem. Like,
Mhm.
you ultimately know, can you go outside? Can you go outside without your makeup on? Are you able to go outside and be comfortable and let somebody see you a certain way? Like, this comes down to the beliefs of what you look like. Yes, we feel more comfortable, many of us, and we want to feel good about ourselves. We talked about this in last week's episode, right? We want to take care of ourselves. We feel better when we're taking care of ourselves. But I'm talking about, like, the deep rooted beliefs about who you are and what you should look like, and how, if you don't look the way you think you should, how that's now impacting your relationships, your time with your partner, your ability to go out with your friends, go to the beach. Like, this is what it's like, where is it holding us back, right? So when we think about our I am statements and statements about yourself, and how you want to start to create new thoughts so that you feel different about your body, which will allow you to behave different in your body, it starts by, again, speaking thoughts into yourself that feel comfortable for you. So, I mean, I could list so many of them. I'm going to give you homework. Okay. Everyone that's listening right now, go and look at some affirmations, or if you feel like you need a little bit of support with this, reach out. We can do that. But, like, because you can look at, there's terms like body neutrality. This is a whole brand new term. I'm not going to try and love my body, because I've been trying to do that forever. And it's so unattainable for me in my mind, but I'm so tired of loathing my body. Right. So it's how can I be neutral in my body and recognize that all my body does for me, rather than trying to love this reflection that I see in the mirror? Maybe I'm going to just recognize that my body is here and it helps me breathe, and my body's here and it helps me, take my grandchild for a walk. I think you get my point, right? We want to be more neutral.
Yeah. And I think, sometimes you talked about the fact that sometimes there's guilt or shame over wanting your body to look different and choosing to do that. I think it all comes down to, tough love on yourself doesn't work.
Mhm.
Beating yourself up for, beating yourself up in any way for, and that's what we do, we beat ourselves up, we bully ourselves into changing, and that's not, that can work, sometimes that can work temporarily, but that doesn't allow you to grow and to expand and to, become a person who feels good about themselves.
Mhm.
So, you're so right, Kim, when you talk about, I think whatever you are choosing to do, whether it's be happy in the body that you're in, whether it's changing the body that you have, um, you have to do it with love. And you don't have to, as you say, you don't have to love your body, but you have to love yourself to say, okay, yeah, I'm not really happy with what I have right now. And my goal is to change it, but I'm going to do it in a loving way. I'm not going to beat myself up and bully myself.
Mhm. Yeah, and this conversation can go, gosh, I'm really reflecting right now of everything that I've been taught and my eyes and heart has been opened up to. We have to really also look at our own, like, to be able to sit with the fact that, I'm not comfortable in this body, but if you are healthy in this body, and you are feeling well in this body, but you always feel like you have to change it and make it smaller, you have to really question that. And because this is coming from what we're taught in society based on a
Mhm.
thinner body is a better body. So if we don't, as women, continually challenge these belief systems, like again, for anybody, I know we were going to talk a little bit about our stories today, but like for anybody that doesn't know me, I started trying to change my body intentionally at the age of 12 years old. And I intentionally put my feet on a scale every morning from the age of 12 until I was 41 years old. And periods of my life where that unhealthy behavior then morphed into in an eating disorder. I struggled with body dysmorphia. I had periods of time where I was body checking, like I've shared this before in some of my stories where if for any of us that know the xiphoid process, we always find the xiphoid process in our CPR training, right? It's just right here. I would use that as an indicator to check to see if my body was smaller. It had to be sunken in. And I did that every single night. And I speak about this. It brings up emotion in me, but we have to recognize, when do the behaviors that we're doing, are they helping us or are they hurting us? Because the research shows that the more focused I try and be on making this body smaller, better, fitter, tighter, more muscular, it starts to, and it can really start to morph into bigger issues than you'll ever realize. And so, what we're doing here is we're asking you to be honest with yourself and say, like, for some of the women that I've spoke to who have, like, they've lived their whole life, Kellyanne, trying to make their body be what society says it's supposed to be. And they're tired, they're
Mhm.
exhausted, they're mad, they're angry. They recognize how much of their life has been lost. And so for those women to be able to say, you know what? I'm tired. I'm tired of trying to change this body. I just want to actually try to be kind to it. And I want to enjoy my life again because they recognize how much they've lost. So
Mhm.
this really is a personal journey. And that's why it's important that we don't put our judgment, because that's what stigma is. It is judgment. We don't put our judgment onto somebody else, telling somebody else how to be in a body, because it's not our right. We should not have any say on how somebody else has their body. This is a personal journey. And the fact is, another conversation, which I won't spend a bunch of time on, but we don't all have the money. We don't have all the same privilege to do this. We're not all in the same boat,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Yeah. So true. And thank you for sharing that, Kim. That's, very vulnerable share. And I can't speak to that. I know I have had challenges, certainly, in my body. And as I was thinking about it this morning, um, yeah, because even though I'm maybe in a smaller body, I don't have all the things that a really attractive body should have, what we're told should be. Um, and so I have had to just reconcile the fact that this is the body that I have. I've fought against it many times, and the one thing that you touched on that I think is such an important topic
Mhm.
is how we feel about our body in our intimate relationships.
Yeah. Mhm.
That is, and I mean, obviously, we can't go into it here, but to me, that is probably the area that has affected me very greatly,
Mm.
um, and that can really challenge a relationship. Right,
Mhm.
when you don't feel good, because that's when you're at your most vulnerable. right?
Totally.
And so, that's definitely another area that I think many, not just probably men too, some men, but feel very challenged in.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And if we think about that, like I catch myself reading articles sometimes about women's health and sexuality and orgasm and all these sorts of things. And for a woman to be able to feel and to appreciate and to feel sensual, you have to feel safe
mhm,
and you have to feel like you can trust your partner. And again, this is why it's so, so important for us to be like, I've had people share this with me that their partners love them. I always ask that, when a woman comes to me feeling like her body needs to be changed. And I'm like, what's your, do you get support from your husband or your partner? Yes, he loves me just the way I am. He encourages me. But when you can't allow your husband to touch you, when you can't undress in front of him, when you have to be in the dark, um, I mean, this doesn't just impact you.
mhm,
This doesn't just impact you. This impacts the relationship with your partner. This is the love that this person, she has for you.
mhm,
And so again, I mean, this is where this is vulnerable. And of course, we're streaming on Facebook right now. So we will keep this, you know, um,
mhm.
but this is the conversations that we get to have when we're in safer, more quieter spaces, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think this is an area of healing for many of us.
absolutely.
And we know that we understand that when we heal ourselves in any area of our lives, it has huge ripple effects, just like you're talking about, Kim. You can, we can try and say all we want, well, how I feel about my body doesn't affect anybody else. It
Mhm,
only affects me. And that is so not true.
mhm,
If you are a parent, if you are a grandparent, if you are an aunt or an uncle, or an aunt, I guess it's women watching us here today. If
mhm.
you are an aunt, everything you do, the unhealed parts of you, and certainly body image can be an unhealed part of ourselves, that unhealed part of you does have ripple effects.
It most definitely does. I said this before, but I'll say it again. When I was having a bad day in my body, everybody knew.
Mm,
Everybody knew, and they knew the second I walked down the stairs.
mm,
Not to mention when we are fixated on our bodies. See, like this is the thing too. If we're talking about self-love, and I love how our conversations just go in so many different directions. This is what we are, raw and unscripted friends.
mhm,
But if I can only have appreciation or have a positive body image when I'm a certain size, my friends, I mean, this is not unconditional self-love. If I can only love myself in this size, then I'm going to encourage you to do more work because change is inevitable. Our bodies will change. We could have an illness that changes the way our body is. We might have an injury. We might have to devote our energy. Like so many people have to put a lot of time and a lot of energy into keeping their bodies looking a certain way. And if you need to then redirect, I ultimately, when I think about that with my own journey, I was able to hold on to the behaviors that I was doing in order to keep my body in the scale saying a certain thing. I was able to do that for a long period of time. But as soon as things started to get like with me being a parent and my children needing me more, my expectations and my roles changing in my career, soon as those variables started to change and more was required of me, I couldn't do it anymore.
mhm.
Right. And that's where the body started to break down. Right. So when it comes back to, I'm just going to take us back to our thoughts here because I want to leave our listeners with things that they can start to work on. And this is a personal journey, but pay attention and go and look at some thoughts that, do you want to be more neutral and you want to focus on all the things that your body does for you? Like, I love my legs because they help me take my grandchild for a walk, or I love my body and my arms because I can now hug my partner. Like this is more neutral, right? Or we can start to be like, you know what? I am learning to love my body the way it looks. I am sexy. Like you get to decide what I've had that with clients. I'll say, well, do you want to be more neutral or do you want to be sexy in your body? Do you want to be sexy in your body in your 50s? She's like, I want to be sexy. So, okay, great. Let's do that. Right. So, um, take a look at that. Go and look at some affirmations, and you can look at our past episodes. We've talked a lot about affirmations before and how to use them. But let's just start to look at some of the other things. And I have no time. It's 10 o'clock. Oh my goodness, Kellyanne. Get
Time flies when you're having fun.
I guess I'm going to say two more things. Things that I really believe will have the biggest impact on you starting to create a healthier relationship with your body. First of all, pay attention to what you consume. Okay, pay attention to what you consume. If you are on social a lot and you're looking at things that are making you feel uncomfortable in your body or making you feel like your body needs to be changed in order for you to be kinder to it, you have to recognize that those are going to impact you. So you might have to take a full-on social media break, or you're going to start to change your algorithm so that you're seeing more diversity. Go and follow social media accounts where they're talking about body acceptance, body respect. Go and search those types of hashtags if you know how to do that. Follow me. I talk a lot. I've got so many friends that do this work. It's so important. So you got to bring content in. If this is brand new to you, there's beautiful books. The Body is Not an Apology is a beautiful book on self-love and really looking at the patriarchy and how our bodies have been taught to be a certain way. And not just in white Caucasian, but in Black fat bodies as well. And also, so pay attention to the content, pay attention to who is in your environment, right? We talk about this one all the time, Kellyanne, right? If I'm surrounded by people and women and men who are always talking about dieting, gosh, ladies, can you imagine if we changed our conversations instead of talking about how our bodies look or praising somebody for the weight loss that they've had? And I know that that's a conversation on itself that we could talk about another time, but can we talk about other things? We need to take the focus off of the body. We are so body focused. And if we can change the way we are exploring life and what life really means and appreciate each day for that, that's going to have a deep impact on you. And ultimately, the last thing I'm going to say, you dress your body every single day, at least unless you're so comfortable in it, you're living it as a nudist. But you dress your body every single day. Vulnerability and uncomfortable feelings and struggling starts right from the second we wake up in the morning, when we can't come out of the shower and look at ourselves in the mirror, right? When we can't go into our closet because we have so many clothes in there that remind us that our body used to be this size. Start to explore. I always say, clean out your closet, at least pull out the stuff that's not fitting you. Find a closet that you can go into it and go, I love this. You don't have to be the type of person right now who's choosing to wear a bikini on the beach. If you're comfortable in a full piece, you wear your full piece. Or if you're wearing, I don't know, even going to the beach in a bathing suit and a pair of shorts over top of your bum might be where you need to start. But you have to start yourself somewhere. You have to take those little baby steps. If we continue to keep ourselves locked in here, I have to be the person who always covers myself up. You will be that person. And my friends, it's hot. It's so hot. Right? Oh, so much sweating trying to cover ourselves up. I know it's after 10 o'clock. We have to wrap this show up. It probably could be a show all on like an entire podcast, which there are. So go and watch some podcasts on but if you have any questions, if you feel like you could use the support, heck, we could bring a few women together and I could create a space for us just to continue. The summer's here. The warmer months are here. Let's embrace this time. Let's start to work. Don't wait. Don't wait any longer. So I'm just inviting you to reach out to me. Obviously, I'm Kelly, and I know you're comfortable with that because this is my zone.
Of course, this is Kim is the perfect support for anybody who has any struggles with their body image, and so I encourage you definitely to reach out to her.
Mhm.
So I guess it's time to wrap this up.
It is.
I wanted to mention just one thing before we go.
Please.
I am offering a free masterclass next Wednesday. It is called Unlocking You, and it's all about just discovering why you keep yourself stuck, why you're not able to make the changes that you can, and uncovering the amazing power of your mind. And we're going to talk about thoughts and all those things. So I would love to have you join me. Just reach out on my socials, and the links are there.
Perfect.
And Kim talked a little bit about how to find her. So
Mhm.
thank you so much for being here with us for this important conversation. And we wish you all an amazing week.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week for another episode. Be sure to go over to our YouTube channel as well. There are 27 episodes. Some are under the live tab, some are on the Mave feed, but please share these podcast conversations with your friends. Kellyanne and I are really doing our best. And if you have more conversations that you'd like us to talk about, you need support in certain areas, please feel free to message us. Okay. Bye, everyone. Take care.